it's such a taboo thing, is like, oh, if someone finds out you're getting counseling, you must be weak.
And if you just decide and choose to stay in Lodabar, you can't expect change. Like, you can't expect to grow. You have to accept the invitation and take your seat at the table and engage with it.
All right, so the first clip we got is from the first sermon of the series, and it was Pastor Brody preaching on Mephibosheth. Had to put some work into saying that right. And specifically the section we're talking about, he was talking about where Mephibosheth lived, which was this place called Lodabar. And Pastor Brody had kind of drawn some parallels between Lodabar and people who live in kind of like a helpless state in life. We'll just get right into it.
Now, Lodabar, as I was saying, is not just a physical place. It's a figurative place. It means a place of no bread. How many of you know that you can be trapped in a place where you're just like constantly stirred but never satisfied? Lodabar is a place where there is no satisfaction. You're hungry but never fulfilled. You're thirsty but never quenched. Lodabar also means a pastureless place. A place where there's no pasture. A place where nothing is growing. A place that life is in reverse. A place with no momentum. Everything is flat, and in fact, it's sinking backwards. Nothing takes root, and yet David's song is, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leads me to what? Green pastures, still waters. He restores my soul." A rich, a lively, an expansive, a blessed place. And I'm feeling like there's so many people who are living in this place of Lodabar when there's a place of blessing and an oasis for you and for everyone's soul. And thirdly, it's a place where there's no communication. It's one thing to suffer. It's another thing to suffer in silence with no communication. And I feel like a lot of people are just in that place of hurt, in a place of pain. They're silent because they can't even explain it. It's a place of trauma, a place that's unexplainable, where I've dealt with things from my past. And I'm connected to the things that I don't even understand, so I don't even want to talk about them. And it's related to a place like where someone has let you down, or just life has let you down, and that silence is actually a symptom of shame.
It's really good.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I think this place of Lodabar, and the question I have for you guys is, how do we engage? Because very much where our culture is at right now is nobody's afraid to really share what they're going through. Like, you see a lot of that online, but nobody's really actually dealing with it, and they're kind of accepting it. And that's where Mephibosheth was. Like, he was just kind of resigned to being in Lodabar and living in that place of no hope. So how do we engage with that? How do we engage with our stuff in today's day and age and actually move from that place of being in Lodabar to living in green pastures?
I think one really cool thing that he kind of went on, is actually hard to say if he said it after or if it was within some of the cuts there, but he talked about how, he told a little bit of the story of Mephibosheth and how his nurse dropped him when he was young, and that was why he was lame in both of his legs. And then as time went on, he would have been part of the royal bloodline, being the grandson of Saul. And when that all changed and David was put in place instead of Saul, that he ended up living and being resigned to this place of shame, which Lodabar symbolically kind of represents that, and physically was named that. It was really cool, the picture that he kind of painted as well, where he physically couldn't even leave Lodabar himself. He was powerless to leave
because he couldn't walk.
He was in this place of shame. He was in this place of kind of helplessness, brokenness, and completely unable to pick himself up and get out of it. Which is this really, really obviously really cool picture of the gospel, where we are actually powerless over our own salvation. We're powerless over the state that we actually are born into and live in regards to sin and in regards to living in the world. And so I think, in regards to that question, how do we engage? I think the only way that you can engage is to surrender and allow someone to pick you up and carry you out of that place, because otherwise, because we can't give ourselves healing from the areas where we were dropped. We can't give ourselves healing
Right.
from, you know, some of the, like, we obviously take steps to walk through healing and to engage in that, but you have to like allow yourself to let go and surrender those things, put it down, and then let somebody pick you up and bring you into
Well-
healing, because you're powerless to do it just on your own.
And you get into that place where you feel so hopeless, and you think that the silence means absence, that you're not hearing from God, you're so hopeless, you don't know what to do next, but you think that because you're not hearing from him, he's actually not present when really he is. And because you haven't surrendered, and because you haven't even got to that place where we say that rock bottom, and you kind of hit that place where the only way I'm going to get out of this is if I look up and say, God, I need your help in that. But because we get into that place where silence, we think, and I mean, we've all been in that place where, oh, silence just means he's not there with me. Mentally, maybe I have thought that, but in my heart, has it actually made it from here to here, where I'm actually in my brain saying, God, I want to know who you are. And in this moment, I just feel completely hopeless in that. And I feel like your silence means you're not with me.
Yeah. I think coming back to like even what Logan was asking, like even the statement, like people are not afraid to share, you know, what they're going through. But I think it's also like it's masked what they share. Like I think
Yeah.
people are too, I think again, like when it comes to isolation and shame, like people are scared to actually go super deep with people and super deep with other people. So when he was talking about like isolation and silence can feel like when you're just isolated. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are walking around in that place where they feel completely helpless. They feel like they're held down by shame.
Yeah.
They're isolated, that they're the only one who kind of like deal with that problem. Or that's what the enemy likes to tell people is like, you're the only one who deals with this. You know, don't tell anybody about
Yeah.
You're
this.
stuck with your legs.
Yeah. And you have people that are, you know, obviously are maybe oversharing different areas of their life, but I think really to get down to what is actually going on, I think people are way too scared to share about that stuff. Like the really, really
Yeah.
deep buried stuff that I think is covered in shame and covered in like just a space where they just don't feel like if I share that dark, whatever I'm dealing with, or that deep place of shame, that people will cast me further away
Right.
from them or won't accept me or, you know, just too scared to actually like open up and talk about that stuff. I think
Right.
I think people talk about a lot of surface level stuff and they make it seem like,
Well,
you know, they're being open and honest.
Yeah.
and
right?
social media gives you the illusion that you're actually doing something by posting that online, because then you get the likes and the hits and, oh, I'm so sorry, and everything's going on. And it gives you this illusion like you've actually accomplished something by sharing it out there, but really you've just kept surface. You've never actually gone deeper than that.
Yeah.
You can kind of get away with,
Yeah.
because you're sharing something, like because you're sharing
Yeah.
some level of difficulty or pain
Yeah.
or whatever it is, you get away with kind of like, oh, well, you come, so the other person comes away from that conversation feeling like, oh, okay, well, that's what they're going through. But it's really easy to do that, like to stay kind of like 6 inches below the surface
Yeah.
rather than actually getting into what you're really going through, because it's like, okay, I've shared, and that's like your ticket out of the conversation, your ticket out of the, how are you really doing conversation is like, well, you share this thing that's like a part of the truth, or maybe not entirely all of it or whatever. And then it's kind of like your ticket out of that, having to deal with it.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I think also people use the idea. So you talked about how Mephibosheth. Wow, what a
It's
what
so
a
hard.
name.
I'm not even going to try and say it.
Mephibosheth.
Mephibosheth. Terrible. How he's lame and he can't walk. I think a lot of people actually like, and I want to be careful with how I say it, but like think utilize that as like a victim hood, and they honestly like they use that as like as an excuse to like just stay. Like, well, you know, this is just my life and this is just how I was. And I just deal with, you know, anxiety, or I'm just one who's really angry all the time, or that's just how I react to things. And people don't necessarily,
And you wear that.
yeah, they don't want to accept that I have to change.
Right.
And I actually have to, you know, what you were saying, to surrender all that. And to surrender isn't just to like, you know, bury it deeper. It's to actually expose it and be vulnerable and say, I actually need help.
Yeah.
And I think that people are scared. Like we were talking about this, like what counseling, like getting counseling. I think it's such a taboo thing, is like, oh, if someone finds out you're getting counseling, you must be weak. You know what I mean? Like people are scared to feel or to be perceived as this weak person
Needy.
because needy. It's like, well, actually, that's where we're called to be. Not in a sense of like, this crying baby on the street that's just like helpless and can't do anything for themselves. But like, I think it's being okay with not being okay.
Well, it's human to have needs.
Right.
It's not weak to have needs. It's just human to have needs.
Yeah.
I think something that's interesting about some of that conversation too is like David offered, like part of what David offered to Mephibosheth was, you will always sit at my table. And I think how that kind of ties to what you're saying is, as well as like the invitation is open.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to engage with the invitation.
Yeah.
Christ offers us health and healing, and I think he does that through like community. He does that through things like counseling. He does that through like obviously through his word and through prayer and through times where you're devoting like private time to him, where he can bring healing. But there's so many other like ways that he brings healing. But you have to accept the invitation. You got to take your seat at the table. And if you just decide and choose to stay in Lodabar, you can't expect change. Like you can't expect to grow. You can't expect healing. You can't expect to go anywhere or to kind of take your spot, because you have to accept the invitation and take your seat at the table and engage with it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've noticed that's kind of interesting in a lot of people too is people, and I think it's more common now, but there's a lot of people who have their stuff and it's kind of like what we're talking about. It's like the surface level. They're kind of addressing it, not really. But then there's the people who like to the nth degree take on their stuff, and that's like their thing that for some reason now that they actually can't let go of. Like
They claim it over themselves.
It becomes their personality.
That's their identity, and it's like they can't let go of those things. It's like their precious thing. It's like at that point you're like cutting out a part of yourself is probably what it feels like to them. But it's so crazy to me because like we look at that story, like as Jamin was saying earlier, and David was saying like you have a seat forever. Like you're at my table always. And there are people who'd be in that situation and would choose their thing that they're struggling with over that. Like it's like, I can't do that. There's no way.
Well, it becomes the idol.
Have you ever had a thing like that? Like a thing that was like a clear deficiency that's comfortable to hang on to? Because I mean, I think there's lots of reasons that people do that. Have you ever had one of those?
I had something when I was early married. Someone had once said to me,
were you early married or married early?
Early married. We were probably only in our first 10 years of being married. And I was a really angry guy. And I kind of masked it a little bit. And then someone had said something to my wife that she relayed to me one time. She's like, she said, oh, he's really belligerent and really like opinionated and angry, and just was kind of like, how is he always like? And that's like, well, that's not what I see all the time. All the time is the key word. But I remember after that, I actually wore that almost like a badge of honor for a while. And that because that person saw it in me, even though it was wrong, I was angry for no reason. I was being belligerent and rude and disrespectful. But I remember wearing that, like this is who I was, and it became my identity for a long time. Well, that's just how Brian is. But it wasn't who God had made me to be. But for years, I wore this mask of anger, of bitterness, of unforgiveness. I just harbored it.
And maybe not like a badge of honor, but like maybe something to like excuse certain behaviors
to
or like
certain behavior. Oh, that's
like,
just how he
like
is.
Because it's more comfortable than changing.
It's
It's
easy
more
to-
comfortable
yeah.
than engaging with the process of healing.
And then having to face your own, why are you like that?
or it's like you
Right.
justify, you use that as a justification
Yes.
for like certain actions
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get certain things that you want, right? So
Yeah, and that's 100% right. You use it to get to where, well, I want that thing. My wife has it, or someone that's close to me has it, and I will just be this way, and they'll just give it to me.
Yeah.
And it became so comfortable until I had someone point that out to me more than once. It took me a while, and then the Holy Spirit had to break me down piece by piece by piece. But what you said earlier, both of you, is that you have to face it, and that is uncomfortable to find out why you're so angry, and why you're so belligerent, and why you're so frustrated, and why that's so deep seated in you. To actually face that stuff is extremely hard. And it wasn't like one moment after church at an altar call fixed it all. It was like years of having to work through and wade through the weight, wade through the anger, wade through, like apologize to my wife for being such a jerk. Like just like, I can't believe how rude I was to her early on in the relationship, but to have to go back and to face all those things, you're just like, whoa, it's weighty.
It's like a deeper thing too, because you have to realize that you have like whatever the problem is. Like if you have anger problems, you have to like acknowledge that you have anger problems, but then there's a deeper level of
Yep.
like, oh, I've actually been like leaning on my anger problems and using like, oh, that's just the way that I am as an excuse for the behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you have to be able to come to a place where you realize like, oh, not only do I have anger problems, but it's like I'm like embedding it into my personality as an excuse for like behaviors that are comfortable to get things that I want
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
in social situations.
And then at one point it came across, how am I going to raise my kids like this?
right.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of those things. I'm like, holy moly. If
And
I
that's
go,
often just like the behavior of it too. It's like a symptom of something.
it's all,
Like, anger is
generally-
not like your problem. There's something that you're dealing with on a very, very deep level. And it's
Absolutely.
the same thing with like being lame. Like you can't, it's almost like it happened to him. Like he didn't drop himself as a baby, but he was like, and then for him, like it was something that was physical. But I think for a lot of people, it's something that's like happened, like it's a trauma that happened to them. And then obviously for you, like the outlook was anger. And I would say the same thing in my life. That's like, it was like something that's
was
not
deep.
on the surface. Like it's not on the surface that you can just be like pinpoint it and be like, oh, that's why I'm so angry.
Yeah.
It's often something deep. And that's why you have to like allow yourself to be vulnerable and talk to people. And you can't just, and that's like what, coming back to that isolation, I think God gives us church community,
Oh, I agree.
not just to like, you know, feel good and
Have buddies.
have buddies. It's like, okay, he's like, it may not be everybody in the church, but you're going to find like God's going to bring certain people in your life, and it may be a counselor to actually start to like help you heal, you know, those deeper places.
And challenge you in certain ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be uncomfortable.
I love how like it's kind of, because I think when you can look at a topic like this, it's really easy to kind of default to like people like mentally can kind of like, you can kind of go to like, oh, you know, the problem is anxiety, the problem is depression,
Yeah.
the problem is this, when it's really, it can be more than that. Like it can be anger, it can be pride, it can be so many more things than what we can just kind of like confine it as. And
Like loud symptoms. It could be
Yeah.
very
yeah,
silent
really
symptoms.
loud symptoms.
Yeah.
And I would say just be like that pride and anger go hand in hand, in my opinion, just because you get to the place where, well, I think probably a lot of things with are attached to pride, but you get so angry and that becomes part of your personality or part of how you respond to things, but you won't let it go because you're like, oh, I'm going to hang on to this. And pride gets in the way from actually making steps to release that. Because it tells you, even what you said earlier, we don't want to feel like we're weak. Right? Like my personality is very much, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. So it's like an effort for me to like lay that stuff down before the Lord and be, God, I need your help with this.
Yeah.
And so pride gets in the way so easily.